Ronnie, welcome to Ronnie's.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you been in before, yeah?
Oh yes, yeah. Been here on the vegan nights a couple of times.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was the experience like?
Very nice.
I like to try and just document what we've been doing.
Right. Yeah.
I glanced at your Wikipedia and I was like, oh my god, if half of this is true, this might be interesting. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to look anymore, I'm just going to wait till I meet the bloke.
No.
Is that fair enough?
Best not to look.
We wanted an opinion from the other side because I've been buying what I call ethically hand-reared meat, and I just preface my own little speech here by saying I'm an expert in nothing but running Ronnie's Pizza, and I'm a pretty good pattern decorator from back in the day.
Okay.
Beside that, I'm an expert in nothing, but I'm just trying to learn about the industry I'm in.
Fine. Yeah.
And
okay.
I guess my first question to you would be, how did it turn for you, and what year? Because I know you go way back with this.
Oh, a long time. I mean, I've been vegan 47 years. I was vegetarian a couple of years before that. I became vegetarian it was really through my sister's first husband. He was a very good athlete and he'd been a vegetarian since he was very young. And he represented the county at athletics. He was a very fit guy. He'd been a vegetarian for years, and I said, well, you know, why are you a vegetarian? Seems a bit strange to me. And he said, well, we don't need to kill animals to eat, and if we don't need to, I think it's wrong that we should. And I'm perfectly fit and healthy on the vegetarian diet. And it made me think, because I was a huge meat eater. I was one of these people that sucked the marrow out of bones and ate the bacon rind and all that. You know, I was real big into meat. But it played on my conscience, and I thought, well, you know, if he can do it, surely I can. And there can't be a justification for these animals being slaughtered. There we are, this fit guy who's been vegetarian for years. So within a few days, I actually became vegetarian. And but the only thing was I obviously I was aware that animals were slaughtered for meat, but I wasn't aware of the suffering and slaughter involved in the dairy industry and the egg industry, and I became aware of that a couple of years later. Cows are a mammal like humans. In order to produce milk, they have to have a calf, right? Of course, probably about half of those calves are male calves. They're no good for going in the dairy herd because they can't produce milk. So what happens is about 150,000 male calves are slaughtered every year at the age of 1 or 2 days old. Dairy cows are specifically bred to provide milk.
Yeah.
But in order to provide milk, just like a human mother, they have to have a baby, they have to have a calf. So the question is, what then happens to the calf? If the humans want the milk that's meant for the calf, what happens to the calf?
Yeah. Is a dairy cow never eaten for meat?
They can be eventually. I mean, dairy cows are allowed to live for about 5 years. Now, the natural lifespan of a cow is about 25 years. Right. But they're only allowed to live for 5 years because they are made pregnant as often as possible so that humans can take the milk. And that means that by the time they're about 5 years old, they're getting older, that they become not as efficient at producing milk, and so it becomes, for the industry, no longer profitable to keep them alive. Yeah. So dairy cows are slaughtered at the age of about 5, when they could live to be 25, so it's a fifth of their natural lifespan. And then you've got the problem I've already mentioned of all these, the male calves, which can't produce milk, are slaughtered, a large proportion of them. I mean, some go to produce veal, which is another cruel industry, but about 150,000 a year are slaughtered at 1 or 2 days old because they're of no use to the industry. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I've never made the distinction in my mind between dairy and meat cows, but just jumping back again into your history, like you said, like sucking the marrow out of bones and stuff. Was you a bit like my mum, sort of like my mum in Ireland? They would have a whole pig and they would eat all of it. So are you from that generation where you've seen, like, because now vegan's a huge movement, it's very trendy. I should imagine it was completely different back then. You was even more ostracised as a group, if you like. It was very different. There were very few vegans. In fact,
did you see that kind of sort of early farming techniques where there was less meat around, less travelling, you were seeing more like, you know, black pudding products and sucking the meat out of marrow? And or where did you get your meat from at that point, where you was enjoying meat back in?
Well, it came from, I think mostly it came from a local butcher. But I think it's really important to emphasise there is no such thing as ethical meat. The reason there's no such thing as ethical meat is we do not need to slaughter these animals in order to survive.
Are we talking about the dairy ones again?
I'm talking about all meat.
All animals,
yeah. If you look at male cattle that are reared for meat, they're allowed to live for about 12 months before they're slaughtered. Now their lifespan is also 25 years, so they're slaughtered a tiny fraction of their natural lifespan. And there's no such thing as humane slaughter, that there will always be suffering to those animals involved in slaughter, and it's totally unnecessary because we can all live very healthily on a vegan diet. So why are all these animals being put through that?
Well, I think that's why I asked you, like, if you go back to when you enjoyed meat, I'm interested in how it was farmed then. Did you say 47 years ago?
Yeah, I mean...
Compared to now? Because my impression is it's a lot worse now, how it's...
Well, in terms of, yes, there was less factory farming then, for the reason that the population was smaller. And I think there was, people did consume less meat.
Less, but so better quality.
Well,
I know you wouldn't like to use the word quality, but...
No. There was less factory farming in those days because people ate less meat, and also there were fewer people. So the greater demand for meat and other animal products has led to an increase in factory farming. And that doesn't just include factory farming for meat, it also includes factory farming for milk, because what we're seeing is factory farms now really where cows are kept in huge numbers in a great deal of confinement.
You used a phrase a couple of minutes ago about there's no ethical meat. I guess I'm trying to go down the road of slightly more ethical, or more ethical.
Slightly less unethical.
Slightly less unethical.
It's what I'd say, because it's all unethical. I mean, the thing is, we don't, you know, or these animals don't need to be reared and then slaughtered at a very young age for humans to consume, because we don't need to do it. And so if we don't need to do it, why are we doing it? There can be no justification for it. No matter what conditions those animals are reared in, they're nevertheless still slaughtered, and nevertheless still slaughtered at a very young age.
Yeah, this is why the topic interests me, because it's highly emotive, and I'll never solve it today. And that argument is very difficult to argue against, about the simple death of an animal.
Yes. Less bad doesn't make it good. I mean, for instance, you know, say we would say, okay, like we want to give, you know, I'm going to have some kids, and I'm going to give them a lovely life, and then when they get to 5 years old, I'm going to kill them and have another lot. I mean, that would be totally unacceptable. And I don't see the difference. You see, animals, you know, feel pain, they suffer in a very similar way to humans.
Yeah, okay.
They're sentient creatures, so why do we think it's okay?
There's definitely a hypocritical sense in us all when we're stroking the cat with one hand and watching the casserole with the other.
But it's also unnecessary. You see, if we kind of had to consume animal products, then we would be morally obliged to keep those animals in the kindest possible conditions. That would be the
Let me jump right in if you don't mind.
We don't need to consume those products, and so those animals don't need to be reared and slaughtered. Those fish don't need to be caught, for instance, because we don't need to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the bottom line, really. It's as simple as that.
I hear you. It's a hard one to argue with at times. It seems to me like meat eating, if I had to sort of put it in a bubble, and I knew I was going to meet you, so I was trying to think of something to say.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, way back, not 47 years, not 100 years, not 200 years, but maybe 300-400 years, or whenever we want to talk about when people were breeding pigs. So humans have sort of bred an animal out of wild animals, wild boars. Again, I'm no expert in this, so shoot me down, but it feels to me like humans have, to put it in the strongest way, as devil's advocate, had to eat meat in the past.
Well, whether or not that's true, and I would say it isn't, but whether or not that's true, we're dealing with the situation today. We don't need to do so today. And so therefore there can't be a justification.
So you're saying at all, which is...
we absolutely
and you've been very active over the years.
We absolutely
so I'd love to
don't need to
ask you a bit about
so the other thing is, now for instance, if somebody set up a farm to farm dogs, and they said, right, we're going to farm these dogs in really humane conditions, we're going to treat them really well, we're going to be kind to them. But when those dogs reach the age of, when they're fully grown, maybe 6 months, 12 months, we're going to source them for meat and we're going to eat them, right? And in some countries, of course, they do eat dogs and cats and other animals we don't eat here. Then there actually is no difference, and we would be horrified if you put on your menu, I'm serving dog today, you've got dog on your pizzas, but don't worry folks, this is ethically sourced.
Personally, I justified that in my mind by thinking, well, yeah, a pig could be a dog, and a dog could be a pig, and we could have dogs in butchers, and we could have pigs on leads, but it's literally, that's not the way it went, and I'll still go back to this. Humans had to breed something. I'm not sticking by it. It's just a thought I've got. They had to breed something to eat, and because of the way animals produce, it's just so. I mean, there's rabbits everywhere, isn't there, and things like that. And I'm just thinking that.
I mean, rabbits were actually introduced to this country. They're not a native animal.
Right.
Yeah. But there's always been sources of vegetable protein. There's always been nuts and beans and all those foods that we've been able to use as protein sources since the year dot. So at any stage, our species could have lived as vegans. But for some reason we chose not to. But
would they have the?
I mean, just because something's been going on for a long time doesn't mean it's right. I mean, slavery goes back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
And okay, so in those days, people may not have had the knowledge we have today, and so they did rear and slaughter animals in much smaller numbers than they do today.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, just because somebody did that a long time ago doesn't mean that was right then, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's right now.
You just kind of fell into it primarily.
Yeah, but for whatever reason that happened, it doesn't mean that is. We should always try and live as ethically as we can and as compassionately as we can. And just because somebody did something many, many years ago doesn't mean that is a right or a good thing for us to do now, because we certainly don't need to do any of that now.
Yeah.
And I've only really been talking about the kind of ethical side of it in terms of the animals and the suffering of the animals.
What would you put at the top of your list? What troubles you most when we're talking about this broad term, factory farming? What would trouble you? What would be number one on your list? Would it be chickens?
Well,
cows? Would it be the transport part? Is it the slaughter part? Is it?
Well, it's it's the whole system really. I mean, if we're looking at the animals that are most persecuted in terms of being used for food, it's actually fish. It's actually fish. It's not land animals. We consume in this country. Humans consume 8 billion animals a year.
8 billion.
8 billion. Yeah. 7 billion of those animals are sea creatures.
That United Kingdom?
In the UK. Yeah. 8 billion. If we look at it worldwide, we have a situation where every single second 50,000 animals are slaughtered. 50,000 animals every single second. That's worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
So in the UK, it's 8 billion a year. It's an average of 100 or so per person that consumes animal products. But the biggest victims are actually fish, because out of that 8 billion, 7 billion are fish or the sea creatures. And that's how solve the problem, because there's tremendous cruelty involved in the catching of fish, and the industrialised trawling that causes tremendous.
Yes, it's really the sort of.
So if you're looking at land animals, then the biggest victims of that in terms of numbers are chickens, because out of that billion land animals that are slaughtered, at least 3/4 are chickens. A huge number, because they're smaller animals, and
so you said
they're kept.
Did you say 8 billion in the UK?
8 billion animals slaughtered.
And you reckon 3/4 of
the 1 billion land animals.
The 1 billion land animals,
right? 3/4 of those. You're talking about 750,000, 800,000. No, sorry. You're talking about like
like 3/4 of a billion.
3/4 of a billion, yes. Whatever that is. 750.
So like 7 million sea animals.
7 billion.
Yeah.
7 billion.
3/4 of a billion.
3/4 of a billion.
Land animals.
1 billion land animals.
1 billion land animals.
3/4 of the land animals are chickens.
Yeah, 3/4 of 1 billion are chickens. 3/4 of a billion chickens.
So 750,000
million,
isn't it?
Well, it depends if you're in America, because a billion. But a billion's a lot. I think everyone knows what a billion is.
A billion, yeah. I mean, that's right.
What would be the most strange animal at the other end of that? Is there something like we kill that's just ridiculous, like people wouldn't understand? Just as a bit of a.
You mean like
who's the other? Who's the three?
Numbers.
Are we talking chickens, pigs, cows, fish? We've covered. What else are we killing for food?
Sheep.
Sheep
Killed, and then you have animals like ducks and
ducks.
Turkeys. For instance, at Christmas, a huge number of those killed.
Yeah.
And then you have other. There's other. Less usual, like some people eat octopus, don't they, and those type of animals that are obviously.
Yeah. So can I, at this point, I'd love to get into some of your activism in a minute, going back in the past, just because it sounds pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But I'd like to ask you, this is a question I had in my mind, like, as a restaurateur, and as someone who's kind of riding the back of a food revolution in the UK, I think it's been going on 10, 20 years, where our food has become, the standard's gone up and up and up and up. We used to think the French had great food and so on.
Yeah.
And in Britain it's been going up and up. Popularity of TV chefs, etc., etc. Now I'm going to put a label on something that happened, I'm going to say 10 years ago, and I'm going to call it the man v food effect. Within that sort of rising standards in food in the UK. What happened was, that's been a big movement in this country, and my point here is people are making meat specifically look fantastic. I'm not saying that's to me, to you, to anybody. They're making it look more unbelievable than they've ever done. What I mean by that is slow cooked meats, glazed meats, and I just wondered what your opinion was on, like, someone said to me again, I'm playing devil advocate, like vegans, and it was actually the veg grower, Webster's veg shop, who, and I shouldn't have exposed it, but I won't say the name he said down there. I said, do you get a lot of vegans in? Because I love cooking with veg as well. And she says, yes, but it'll always be a minority. And my question to you, Ronnie, I thought would be, do you think you'll always be a minority? And how do you feel about this huge movement against these meat eaters that are just making these burgers and steaks just look absolutely amazing?
Well,
and it's almost like
however amazing it looks, it still comes from the slaughter of an animal.
But you know what I mean, don't you? You're up against a huge tide of the food industry.
The tide of veganism has become huge.
It is massive. It is massive. But that's my question. Do you think you'll always be in a minority, or do you think you're going 50-50, or
no?
Do you think you'll get it?
I think eventually everyone will be vegan.
Yeah. Do you think that, or do you hope that? Because
no,
this is where I want to get back into.
Obviously, I hope that. But
do you believe it?
I believe it's possible. Yeah,
I believe it.
I mean, we can't, as a vegan advocate, my view is we don't know the future, and all we can do is
I'm not trying to catch you at any point there. I'm just wondering how far.
But you see, there are other reasons for veganism apart from the suffering of animals. To me, the slaughter and suffering of animals has always been my main concern.
Yeah.
But there are huge environmental reasons for veganism. The consumption of animal products is hugely damaging to the environment, and it's been claimed in some research that it's actually the biggest cause of climate change. And climate change is so
just mainly because of these sort of huge American-style farms, is it that kind of thing?
It's the numbers of animals we have, the emissions from those animals in terms of carbon dioxide, methane, the transportation involved with transporting those animals, but also transporting food. What you have to remember, if we take just one example, take the rainforests, for instance. The main cause for the destruction of rainforest is animal farming, either in clearing the rainforest to keep animals on that land, or to grow crops there to feed animals. Because what we've got to remember is that when someone consumes an animal, certainly a farmed animal, that animal has had to eat, that animal has had to be fed, and crops have been grown to feed that animal. Now in this country, if everyone in this country was vegan, we could feed the whole country on just a third of the agricultural land that we use at the moment, because it's so much more efficient as a way of producing food. And so that means that we could have a much more environmentally friendly way of farming.
Well, I have to agree with you there.
We could have hedgerows. It means a lot more land could go back to nature because we wouldn't need it for farming. And so and it means a lot more trees could have been grown. Because one of the problems...
I'd agree with you in that, like I think I was saying earlier, that like I've got an idea that people waste a lot of meat. When the meat's wrapped up in plastic, the waste is incredible. If you know what comes off an animal, how long it lasts, you can... Like I buy a whole pig and I've seen it in a box, it comes in sleeves, and it could last, if I was just feeding my family, it would last me maybe 2 years, certainly a year. It's subsidised with more vegetables and other meat, but I don't think that's kept a cap on. That would be my idea, to not give people the meat they want until they understand how to... Would you concede at any point in your life that...
I don't see how consuming of meat in any form can lead to veganism. I wouldn't say that...
It can lead to less suffering.
But we can live without any suffering. This is the thing. And you see, the problem is that people can think, oh, that's okay then. I'm able to eat meat because that animal has suffered less, well, they think in some ways ethical or humane. So it can in some ways give people an excuse to consume meat, which they otherwise wouldn't have.
I agree with you there. I don't think people need much of an excuse, going back to, because people see juicy steaks and they don't need an excuse to switch the switch off and think, oh, I don't care where that's come from.
Well, the thing is, but you see...
Part of the reason for this video really was to educate my customers a bit.
The thing is, I enjoy juicy steaks.
Yeah?
But to me it wasn't justifiable, that because I enjoyed a certain taste, that didn't justify the suffering and slaughter that went into providing that taste. That would be just a totally selfish motive.
You did some serious activism in your years.
Oh yes.
Tell me a point, just a starting point, where you looked around in the middle of something and thought, oh my God, this might have gone a bit too far. What was the most sort of ridiculous, I'm not going to say stunt or act or protest, because I should imagine there's been a few.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I became vegan, I understood it wasn't enough to just be vegan myself. And the reason for that was because, okay, it's great, you know, I was now vegan, I wasn't buying in, I wasn't putting money, I wasn't paying someone else, because basically, you know, somebody that consumes animal products is paying someone else to do their dirty work they're paying someone else to slaughter those animals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, I was no longer doing that, but loads of other people were, and I thought, well, if I really want to protect animals, if I really want to, you know, stop the suffering and slaughter of animals, I need to change those other people too. I need to change the outside situation. It wasn't just about me.
Right, get
So
your hands
that's
dirty.
why I became an activist. I mean, the first activism I did was against hunting.
What year was this?
Oh, this is way back in probably 1973.
So a bit of a pioneer. Bit of a pioneer, fair to say.
Well, I wasn't a pioneer in terms of hunt saboteurs. That had been going probably 10 years before already.
Really? The 70s?
In the 60s that began.
I thought it was like I'm 45. The fox hunting thing was huge in Britain, the protests. And I'm thinking late 80s. I thought it all kicked off.
Well, I mean...
But when did they ban it? Eventually.
It's been banned. I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, something like that. It's a while now. It was probably...
So back, you were saying back in the 70s it was...
But the thing is, sort of like it's banned, but it's not banned.
Yeah.
They still do it.
Yeah.
And because it's not properly policed, because they're allowed by law to do trail hunting, which is where someone pulls a smelly bag along and they're supposed to chase that. But they don't stick to that. They do still.
They use it as a bit of a cover, you think?
Well, yes, and because it's not properly policed, because the government doesn't want to put resources into policing it,
Mm-hmm.
it means that they're able to actually just carry on in many cases.
Well, they're not policing street robbers in Dudley now, so good luck with trying to get that up the list.
Well, I think this is because of cuts to the police, isn't it? By the government, and so of course, what happens is it's ordinary people that suffer that because, of course, you get more street robbery. And this is going off.
So what was the hunt? What was the like? You thought, right, I'm going to go and
But
I'm going to get out. This was like weeks or months after you became a vegan, or a year.
Oh no! It was only weeks really.
Yeah.
As soon as I became vegan, you see, I didn't realise. I just thought, obviously, animals were being slaughtered for meat, and I didn't want to be part of that, so I became a vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time I found out about veganism, I also found out about lots of other things, because it's through an article I read in a magazine about all of this, sort of various articles that were in the magazine I read. And I wasn't really aware of hunting before that, or lots of other abuse that happened to animals, like animal experimentation. For instance, I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't really aware of the fur trade. All these things were happening.
Again, that seemed like a thing that got kind of shut down or exposed in like the late 80s or 90s. I'm remembering on the news with the smoking beagles. And
yes, that's right. There was a lot of activism at that time regarding animal experiments. It still goes.
But you must have been primed for all that. What I'm calling, when I noticed it peak, you must have been. If you've been doing it since
probably 73. Oh yes, I was involved in a lot of campaigns against animal experiments, against fur trade. But what's happened in more recent years is that the focus has changed, and people now are focusing much more on promoting veganism. Because if you look at the number of animals involved, like I said, for instance, in this country, well, in the UK, 8 billion animals are slaughtered for food every year. The number of animal experiments in the UK is around 4 million a year, and that's a
still today.
horrific number still today.
What industries mop the majority of that up? What are they testing them for?
All sorts of things from household products to drugs to...
Still, there used to be the story of, apart from the smoking beagle, we used to hear the shampoo in the eyes and stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you think there's any of that been re-regulated? Because they kind of convinced us it had, that we don't pour shampoo into...
In terms of shampoos and cosmetics, a lot of that has stopped. People become more aware of that, and I think more people would boycott those products. So a lot of the firms now that sell those products don't use that form of testing.
So what do you think's left? What are we testing them for? What are we testing? What animals is it?
It's mainly the main animals that are experimented on are mice and rats,
Right.
but they still use dogs and cats and monkeys, primates, are still used, and some farmed animals as well. There's a whole range of different animals that are used for different things.
Yeah.
And that is still a huge problem. But if you look at the figures, that's 4 million, whereas the food industry accounts for 8 billion. So that's a huge differential.
So you think you've made some, you've moved the slider up a bit there?
Well, I think what's happened is if you go back 20 years or so, people didn't campaign for veganism. A lot of the people who campaigned to protect animals were vegan, but they didn't campaign for veganism. They campaigned against other things like animal experimentation, against the fur trade, against hunting. And so it's only really in the past 20 years that vegan campaigning has taken off. And I think that's one of the main reasons why there are now so many vegans, because people began campaigning for veganism, educating people about veganism and why they should be vegan, and that is, I think, a major explanation for
Have you got some straight numbers on that? I mean, how many vegans in the world in 1970 roughly compared to
There was a survey by the Vegan Society, probably about, it must be about 12 years ago now, where they commissioned a public opinion poll, and that came to the conclusion that 150,000 people in the UK were vegan. But about 2 years ago, the Compare the Market company that provides information to businesses,
it's a decent site.
They did a survey. It was a general survey about people's concern for the environment, really. But that came to the conclusion that 7% of the population were vegan, which is something like, is it 4.5 million? Now that seemed an incredibly high figure, right? But it was from what you would regard as a neutral source. So
I don't think that sounds over the top from what I've seen.
No.
My customer base.
But that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the number of vegans has increased even more since then. So there has been this, over the past, in a 10-year period, certainly just recently, there's been a huge increase in veganism. And so there's this rapid escalation, and obviously if that continues, we're going to see, eventually see the majority of people vegan if it carries on like that. And the easier it becomes for people to eat as vegans and to buy products that are vegan. I mean, when we talk about vegan products, we have a lot of vegan versions now of cheese and vegan versions of meat. But of course, when I became vegan, there weren't really any of those. And so basically, we were actually having to make meals from basic ingredients. We didn't have the vegan version of meat or anything, so we were using pulses and nuts as a protein source, and cooking our own savoury dishes. And that was vegan food. I mean, we've always had vegan food. We've had vegan food for thousands of years, because vegan food, is your vegetables, is your nuts, is your pulses, all that's vegan food. And it isn't just that suddenly we've got vegan food, because what we've got much more of these days are the alternatives to meat. The meat is made from soya and other vegetable protein, and the cheeses that are based on, for instance, based on coconut oil instead of milk.
I actually think there's a revolution to be had in vegan food as well. It's probably happening definitely now. I think vegetables, I love cooking with vegetables. I'm going to write a new vegan menu off the back of this actually, for this place, but I think there's definitely room to get away from those fake sausages, fake bacon. So I think there's going to be some very interesting stuff with vegan food going on. There probably is already around the country, definitely.
Yes.
London, Manchester.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, to cook from the basic ingredients is healthier.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask, you've been in here before, and this is an establishment that sells meat, and you're kind of at the top end of activism.
Yes.
So where do you kind of draw the line? Because as meat eaters, we feel like, or I'm not speaking for everyone, but I know people have expressed this to me, and I mean, there must have been 40 vegans in your group on some of the busier nights, and you've all been different degrees of, you know, activists to people who just wanted to stop eating factory farm. But this meat eaters, we're always looking at, like, I'm kind of on my back foot thinking, well, what if Ronnie just walks up and he's in the mood to just say, do you know what, like, and just tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, that's what people, me and Liz were talking earlier, you've got this left and right in politics, and you've also got your us and them in meat eaters. And some meat eaters, when they don't want to sort of discover deeper thoughts of people like yourself, they just think, well, he thinks I'm a murderer. And there seems to be this brick wall between meat eaters and vegans.
Yes.
And then it becomes, I don't want to talk to the vegan, or the vegan might not want to talk to me.
No.
And
I mean, I think
there's kind of an air of that. Do you get what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm involved in Wi-Fi's Vegans. We're a very active group just down the road, and we probably do about. Well, certainly last year we did about 100 events that involved.
Is this
educating people?
Marching, placards?
Oh, it's mainly just stalls where we give away vegan food.
Right.
But also giving out leaflets.
Have you got less militant as you've gone on this little journey?
Well,
I'm trying to eke a militant story out. If I've got to be honest, Ronnie.
Yeah. Well, I think
is there a speedboat involved or something? Like glass breaking? Well, I'm just interested to know the story.
No speedboat. I mean, I was involved in a campaign where we did damage property to try to save animals. It was mainly connected with animal experimentation.
Yeah.
And
in the UK?
In the UK, and with the fur trade.
Right.
Although we did damage some boats that were being used for hunting baby seals.
Really? Where was that?
Up on the Wash in Lincolnshire. They used to.
So how did you find, what was that particular story? I'd like to hear about that. Did you read something? Did you go and investigate these companies and find?
With that particular incident, there'd been an existing campaign, because this was basically people probably know more about it in terms of what happens in Canada, where there's a huge slaughter of the baby seals for their white fur.
Right.
And they club them, they hit them in the clubs over there.
Good luck anyone trying to argue that case.
Yeah. What they did here, in the ones that did it in Lincolnshire, they were shooting the seals.
So they would go, what, like it would look like, so I go to North Devon, Lundy, get a few seals out, so they'd be out in the sea?
They'd be on the sandbanks. The mothers would give birth to the baby seals on the sandbanks.
In the UK, seals giving birth, UK seals?
Yeah, in Lincolnshire on the Wash. And what would happen is these guys they were like small fishing boats that they used as sort of mother vessels, and then they'd launch inflatable dinghies and go to the sandbanks, and they'd shoot the baby seals, and then obviously take them and skin them and sell the fur.
Shoot?
They shoot them, yeah.
With
a rifle, I think.
Yeah, just a gun, not a harpoon or...
No. And there'd been for quite a few years a campaign against this to try to stop it, but that campaign wasn't really getting anywhere, so we thought, well, okay, what we'll do is we'll try to destroy the boats they use, and then they won't be able to do it. Right. So this is what we tried to do.
So what was the plan? You was like, where was your plot in this? How many was there of you?
Well, in the end, there were only two of us that actually went to do it. I think more knew about it, but there were two of us that went and caused a lot of damage to these two boats, and they weren't able. Since then, it's never happened again. I think what happened was what we did contributed to the sort of rising tide against the killing of the seals. And after that year, the government, because they had to be issued with licences from the government to do it.
The year after?
Well, what happened was that year it didn't take place.
Because
we
damaged the
boats, but the next year they didn't get a licence.
I shouldn't have.
They never had a licence anymore for it. So that was
So what happened? Like was it a nighttime raid?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Was you tooled up with anything? What was it? How did you damage your boat without like machinery?
Well, we basically burnt the boats. I mean, they weren't very big. We weren't very big, and we went on the boats first, and we checked them to make sure that no one was on them, or there wasn't any animal on them. First of all, we didn't just recklessly. We thoroughly checked, and of course, because they were wooden, or mainly wooden,
ran up a tree.
They actually, well, one of them was destroyed and one was badly damaged, so they weren't able to use.
Which is terrible for a small business, so that's not what I'm laughing at. I'm sure those small businessmen were mortified to find their boats on fire, but did they take them down to ashes, is it?
Well, they weren't down to ashes, but I mean, one in particular was very badly
gone,
was virtually destroyed. I think they both were, but one was worse than the other in terms of what happened to it. So, I mean, that's just kind of one example.
Yeah, that sounds
but I think it's kind of...
that's just crazy for anyone to hear. And
yeah.
What was the... I mean, have you... Anything else where you like put yourself in danger? Or, I mean, that was... Did you... I suppose what I'm trying to get at, that was pretty obvious. I mean, no one can really argue with that. Let's burn some boats because they're beating seals or shooting seals.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty nailed on. We can all agree on that. But was there any, like, did you... The factory, I mean, did you go to farms and so on?
We rescued quite a number of hens from battery farms, where we break into the battery farm.
I'm asking you because as a layman looking on, we used to people read these. They used to be tabloid. People used to love an activist story, didn't they? Bloody activists at it again.
Yeah. And we used to do that. So we rescued a lot of hens from battery units.
Yeah. How did you go about that?
Well, basically, I think it's different now because the cost of security now is a lot cheaper in the digital age. But a place that had units with hens in cages wouldn't have any, there'd be no cameras, there'd really be no security on it because at that time the cost of the security was a lot more expensive than it is today. And so it was very easy just to go in the middle of the night and just go into those places, and we'd have some kind of carrier boxes, and we'd basically just take hens out of the cages. I mean, we could only rescue a small number. I mean, these places have thousands of hens crammed in, and we would put them in the boxes, and we'd have prior arrangement with people that could look after them, perhaps animal sanctuaries or someone that had a small holding or something like that.
My missus is listening now.
Yeah.
She'd want to start that with you straight away and get those chickens collected up.
Yeah. That's it, yeah. And we did a lot of that. I mean, obviously, the number of chickens was tiny that we rescued compared with the number that were in those sheds. But for those chickens, of course, it did make all the difference. And they were able to live. Some of them did survive for some years. Only the female hens can lay eggs, right? Cockerels and male chickens can lay eggs. And what happens is the chickens that are going to be used for egg laying, they have hatcheries where those chickens are hatched out. Well, of course, a very large percentage of those chickens are male. Right? So those chickens are no use for egg laying. So what happens with those chickens, I'm talking about 30 million male chicks a year are slaughtered shortly after they hatch out. And by various means, often they're gassed, but one very common means of killing them is just by throwing them into a grinder.
Yeah, live.
And that's live.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And that's 30 million a year, and that is even for free range, because obviously if someone wants free range chickens, they still have to come from a place that supplies the hens. Now a hen can live maybe 6-8 years, that's their lifespan, but at about by 15-18 months they're killed, because once again their egg production, that they're becoming older, their rate of egg production goes down. They're no longer profitable. So once again you have animals being killed, extremely young when you look at the male chicks.
So you're saying,
so that's why
there's a lot of information my memory's not amazing. To get it clear, you're saying like a free range egg is laid by a female chicken.
Of course, yeah.
At the age of between.
Well, they become able to lay eggs very young, just a few months old. They can lay eggs.
And they'll lay right the way through their life in the free range.
They'll lay eggs, but when they get to about 18 months of age, their rate of egg production slows down, and so it's more economical to replace them with another young.
So they kill the chicken up.
So those
always.
But
is there no other route for the chicken to get out from a life of once his eggs have dried?
No, I think
her eggs have dried.
The problem is because you're dealing.
Unless Ronnie comes and nicks that.
Well,
is there any way? Do they go to?
No, because of course the thing is that you're talking about people that are people are selling eggs for profit. They need to run a profitable business. They're not going to want to feed and look after hens that are no longer efficient egg producers.
So you're saying, as a matter of fact, those free-range eggs, like free-range female chickens, around 18 months, usually get killed by those
some may
methods you use, wood chipper or something like that, meat grinder, sorry.
Oh no, what I'm talking about.
But no, to go back to the male chickens linked to those.
No, what I'm talking about is the male chicks
linked to those.
Some of them are, because what happens is chickens used for egg laying are different to chickens that we use for meat. They're different.
So someone's supplying chicks just for egg laying.
Somebody that's
they only need the girls.
Hatchery,
The blokes copy at what age straight away?
Pretty much, well, straight away.
I think I know what you mean, man. We've seen the videos of the yellow chicks
gassed, or they're a lot of them just get put into grinders straight away. And that is 30 million a year. That's exactly the same for free range, because these are the same chickens. They're all the same chickens. It's just that some, or the majority, get put into battery units. Some of them, I suppose you could say, the less unfortunate ones, go into free range, but nevertheless, even in free range, they're only allowed to live a fraction of their life, because after a certain period, their rate of egg production.
Got it. So those free range chickens
they don't live
killed as well.
Do
we know what method those are?
Sorry.
Do we know what method? Is it gassed or?
What happens with chickens is they're all crammed into a lorry in cranes. So you've probably seen them going along the road on the motorway where they're crammed into these lorries. They're taken to a slaughterhouse. They're hung upside down. They're usually stunned, or they're meant to be stunned through. Their heads go into a bath where there's electric current running through. That's meant to stun them, and then their throats are cut.
You say meant to, suggesting
it doesn't always. They're not always unconscious now, and that's how they're killed. And that's the same. That would be the same.
Is that chicken dumped then, the female egg layer who's been killed in the upside down in the bath? Is that dumped to the body, or is that used for another product?
No, if it's there are two types of, as I said, there's two types of chicken. There's what they call the ones that are bred for food. The ones that are bred for food. Now, the vast majority of those are factory farm. They're kept in broiler units in intense conditions, all crammed together. They've been selectively bred to put on weight very rapidly, and they suffer disease because of that. They suffer deformities because of that, because their body weight becomes so heavy so quickly. But they're killed. They're killed at 6 weeks. Certainly, broiler system. I think if they're free range, it may go up to about 12 weeks.
So when you say broiler chicken, you mean one we eat?
The ones, when I talk about broilers, I'm talking about ones that are kept intensively reared.
Yeah.
But
where would it
for meat
likely end up? Like, are we talking a £2.50 Iceland chicken here,
yes,
or something that was processed into a frozen product?
The vast majority of chickens reared for food are kept in intensive conditions in what's called broiler units, I mean there are some that are kept in more free-range conditions, but all of them are slaughtered at a very young age.
Well, can I jump in there? Because you explained a pretty horrific picture there.
Yeah.
You know, started with the seals and the boat burning.
Yeah.
You can all get on side with that, but then the chickens, you know, people don't. We talked about people just switch off. They don't want to think about what you've just been saying.
Yeah.
So in my mind, if someone sells meat, like the animals lived and been loved.
But the point is, it's still. Nevertheless, it's still a murder. There's still, I think Liz said the phrase victim the other day. It still cannot be right.
We can agree that at least we're moving the slider up for some animals out there, because I'm not buying. I could have a lot bigger profit margin.
I'm sure you could.
But I'm sure a lot of people would suffer.
We're not talking about the idea of any of this being ethical. We need to forget, because it can't be ethical to kill an animal when we don't need to. That can't be ethical. What we're talking about is something that is less bad. We're not talking about something that's good. We're talking about something that isn't as bad as something else.
We could go back to the sort of geopolitical situation, the environment situation, which I know your movements are tied up in.
Yes.
And this is not like, I don't like lefties or anything like that. It's not really the politics I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm moving the gauge up a bit towards, what did you phrase use, less unethical? So if I'm getting less unethical, that's got implications for the environment, good ones. It's got implications for the animal, I think. It's got implications for other animals that I'm not buying that have been treated worse. And it is kind of not just moving the scale up to be less ethical because of the killing at the end. It's helping a lot. So there's no travelling.
See, I don't dispute. It's not my case that those people are cruel to their animals, and it's not my case that those animals aren't kept in good conditions and they're not kindly treated while they're alive. The problem is that despite all that, they're still being slaughtered as very young animals, a fraction of the natural lifespan, and the whole thing is totally unnecessary. We don't need to do that, you see. So, and for me, that's the major problem.
Today, if your ideas were put into practice in 1974, if you waved a magic wand in 1974 or 3, whenever you started, and no one ate meat, and the environmental benefits went up, and we've seen all the benefits, it's hard to imagine for me or any meat eater or any human where that line of animal would end up. Probably not existing, wouldn't it?
Well, these animals that are used for meat all have ancestors, all come from wild ancestors.
Yep.
I mean, as you said, pigs come from boar. The cattle we use originated from wild cattle. Chickens came from
dinosaurs.
All birds are meant to be dinosaurs or related to dinosaurs, aren't they? Originally, but they came from from another type of fowl. And they've all been selectively bred because obviously the aim was to have animals that provided more meat, to have bigger animals. With dairy farmers, to have cows with bigger udders.
Huge,
So they're not, so they've all been selectively bred. They all, you see. So
more
those animals, where the wild ancestors of those animals still exist, those animals wouldn't die out because the wild ancestors that the animals came from would already be.
So we would have.
In terms of.
We'd have a more. You'd imagine we'd have a more prosperous wildlife.
You'd have more wildlife because, for several reasons. First of all, we'd be able to farm in a way that was more wildlife friendly because we wouldn't need as much land for farming. That's first thing. Secondly, we would have be able to have more woodland, because once again there would be extra space, and also we could use some of the woodland could be trees that provided nuts, because that's a protein source, so you could have nut trees. All that is a lot more friendly for wildlife. So we'd have more wildlife, because what we have to remember, in the last 40 years, the world has lost 50% of its wildlife. 50% of the wild animals in the world have gone, and that is through human impact on the environment. And a very large part of that impact has been caused by animal farming.
Yeah. What do you think about hunting? Because another sort of common thing I read out is like hand-reared animals is better, and hunting is almost ideal as far as I've got in my thought, as in the deer's trotting around the woods and then he's not, and no one's done anything to the environment. That deer would last you butchered properly and stored properly in a year or two, and just seemed like it's not practical, but I've certainly considered taking up hunting for my own private meat. What would your opinion on that?
But once again, we don't need to do that, do we? We don't need to kill that animal, because we can live without killing animals, so it can't be right to kill a living creature and deprive another sentient creature of their life.
I concede that I haven't pulled the trigger on an animal. I can concede it's going to feel pretty weird if I ever get to that situation.
We can live without that, and you know, once again, that's kind of no different to someone going and shooting a dog and eating a dog.
Back in the day, you would like curing. We use cured meats that are made in Shropshire actually. And it's stuff that's going to get you through the winter. I'm going back again, like when we didn't have supermarkets and stuff. Who I actually feel are responsible for most of the things you disagree with, factory farming, etc. What we've been talking about. I feel like the supermarkets are pretty much to blame. That's where most people shop. But like curing and things like that, pepperoni and dried aired meats, they were to keep people alive, and probably large families. And to keep the meat. I mean, if you watch sort of, what's the program where they're freezing cold all the time? In Alaska?
Yes, yeah.
And they tend to have nothing, and they cure fish and they cure meat, and the meat lasts all year, and they conserve energy, and they can procreate because they've got extra energy. And there's a lot to think about there, but what's your
Well, I'd say certainly for us here in this country, it's far easier to store vegetable protein, because you have your dried pulses and your nuts, and those things are very easily stored and can keep for a long time. So you can store that even more.
I've never tried a pure vegan diet. Well, I do love everything you talk about,
Yes.
pulses and veg. I do cook a lot of it at home and stuff.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on like vegans or some vegans will tell you like it's definitely healthier, whereas the modern way of thinking, in like if you sort of, I'm a big boxing fan and the UFC, if you see the way they train at the top end there, and I know you'll have examples of vegans that are top athletes, but in my mind, from what I've listened to, a lot of podcasts and stuff, they're saying their protein, like obviously less carbs and protein and vitamins is more the way, so they're basically saying meat and veg.
I mean, for energy, it's carbs. This is why, for instance, footballers has radically changed over the years, because it's been realised that what they need is carbohydrate rather than protein for energy.
Yeah.
And you know, there are a number of top footballers now who are vegan, and top athletes who are vegan.
Yeah.
And it's certainly there seems to be no problem.
Yeah, I've no doubt you can feel better by eating a lot of vegetables. It's just and nuts. It's a no-brainer. I've never tried it, so I don't know what point you get to.
It kind of also depends on the type of diet you eat, because I mean, obviously, you could eat chips all day and you'd be vegan. You know, like if they were cooked in vegetable oil, but that would just to exist like obviously wouldn't be healthy. You know, you have to. It has to be a healthy diet, but it's very easy to eat a healthy vegan diet, and in fact that is kind of the cheapest diet of all what we can eat, because something made from basic ingredients as a healthy diet would be. those are the cheapest things normally to buy.
Have you got an opinion on, it seems like the perfect answer, the meat they're growing now? No suffer meat?
Yeah,
we're talking sort of,
yeah.
Do you call it culture meat? Or?
Yes, well, one name for it is cultured meat.
Is it similar to stem cell technology, or am I on the wrong beat there?
I think it's, yes, I think it probably is. I mean, they do take a cell originally from a living animal. That animal doesn't have to be killed. They just take a cell, and that's cultured, and that's how they...
Is this accepted in the vegan community yet, or is it something that's been encouraged? Or?
I think it's, yeah, I mean, there's certainly some vegans that are involved in the companies that are doing these things. I think it depends on how people look at veganism. If somebody looks at veganism as something that's just to do with, is that an animal product or isn't it is it not an animal product, then obviously that meat wouldn't be vegan because it originated from an animal.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at veganism more as I look at it, which is to prevent animal slaughter and suffering, and for animals not to be persecuted and not to be oppressed, then there's much less objection, or no objection, in fact, to that food, because that, although it comes from an animal, there's no slaughter or suffering involved. You see, so I mean, I don't object to people doing that, or creating that form of meat. Although I would question whether it's necessary, because of course we don't need to eat any form of meat, whether it's cultured or not, in order to survive.
I can see some of my mates screaming at me now, saying, "Tell him like burgers are amazing." It's all like I touched on earlier. Like some people will be right down the other end of the scale. If you think I'm stopping eating a double bacon and cheeseburger, that the patty freaks are knocking out. And it's kind of interesting that the hipsters used to be kind of more vegan, but now the hipsters they're the ones cooking all the.
But the thing is, you see,
the new age juicy burgers.
What those people are saying is, I'm quite happy because I like a certain taste. I'm quite happy for an animal to suffer and die unnecessarily to provide me with a certain taste, and that can't be right, can it? I mean, I might, somebody might like the taste of a dog or a cat or even a child, but that wouldn't justify those being killed to provide that. So it's exactly the same argument. Just because we enjoy something, doesn't.
I only brought that up then because it's if they can grow steaks. My mate Steve's going to order like 100.
For some people,
he's going to feel less guilty and he's going to smash
it's not a thing that it's not something whether I would eat anything like that myself, I don't know, but it's not something I would object to on an ethical ground, because if it doesn't involve suffering or slaughter, then it's not something I'd object to.
Yeah. Well, just to finish off, I read a bit about the sort of political stance you take alongside the vegan activism.
Yes.
And I was interested, just because I do love like conspiracies and stuff like that. The bit I read is about this low population.
Yes.
And obviously, it seems counterintuitive, like that will freak, like if you're saying save the animals but get rid of the humans.
Well, it's not about getting rid of humans.
And I'm wondering, like someone would say, I mean you can explain yourself, but you think a lower population on the earth, and a lot of people think this, a lower population on the earth there's a limit with what's going to save the planet essentially and make it run in harmony. And some of the numbers go really low, like 500,000 on the whole earth, people would be fine. And then someone would say, well, who's going to jump off first? Is that
I think
you or your family? And that's not a gotcha, that's just being a bit conspiratorial. It's like interesting to me.
It's not a question of anyone jumping off, it's just a question of people breeding less. And there's no doubt that the humans have massively overpopulated the earth.
That's your that you've definitely from your research you think.
Well, if we look at if you say look at figures of if you look at mammals on the earth, right? only a few percent of mammals on the earth are wild mammals. Something like 60% of animals on the earth are farmed animals, and I think it's
so 40% what, 60%?
Yeah, it's only
bred, really.
The vast majority of animals on the earth are either humans, which I think accounts for 30-something%, and farmed animals that humans have farmed, which is 60-odd%, and the number of wild mammals is only just a few percent. To me, that says two things. First of all, there are too many humans, and secondly, there are too many farmed animals, because that's, the wild mammals are only a tiny percentage, whereas really the wild mammals on the earth should be the highest percentage, of course, because these are all different species.
It's just when you mention that, people will say, or I'd say, they probably agree, everyone, there's too many people, who's leaving, how do we get this down? It kind of touches on a dark side of the whole thing to me, because it's like you're saying, it's not who's leaving, but we do need to shrink this.
Yeah, we do.
And how long will that take? And are you going to stop my bloodline, or is it your bloodline, or is it me's bloodline?
I kind of.
It's a very. If you think vegan was a tough one to handle,
personally, I don't get a thing about bloodline at all. I don't.
No, I'm just thinking the issues that come up around that.
But
50,000 is like a small village, and
well, I don't know who's. I mean, I've never heard the figure of that number for world population. The figures I've heard for total world population, for instance, there's an organisation called Earth First, and they say that maybe 50 million humans worldwide would be an optimum population.
Just leave England.
They're the kind of figures that some people are saying.
Yeah.
But whatever the figure is decided is the optimum figure.
Yeah.
And obviously people have different ideas about what that would be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is no doubt that there are far too many humans in terms of what's fair, you see, because we share this earth with loads of other animals, loads of different other animals.
You're all right, Emily, don't be scared, we're not
and now
playing by protocol.
This is their home too. But what's happened, instead of us sharing it and in a fair way with them, we've totally dominated, we've totally kind of occupied the earth and pushed them right to the margins. And there's lots of reasons for that, and causes of it. But one of the causes is human overpopulation. And that's unjust. It's unjust for it's greed and selfishness that we've done this. And so we need to do something about it. We need to create a fairer world for other animals that live here. One of the ways of doing that is to reduce our population. That doesn't mean killing people or doing anything unethical. It just means that we need to breed less.
Yeah, I'd agree. And probably the sumptuous nature of the way the supermarkets are full is probably encouraging overbreeding. That's a deep subject.
Why is it so difficult for people to live ethically? Why is that so difficult for people? Why is it so difficult for someone to say, well, I'm not going to have an animal slaughtered for me just because I like a particular taste? Why is that such a difficult thing for anyone to say, for anyone to do? Isn't that really easy? Because after all, there's lots of other lovely tastes. There's lots of vegan foods with lovely taste. All right, that person might not be getting the same taste that they've been used to. But why is that such a big deal? I don't understand why that's such a big deal with people when that involves so much.
Say habits, probably a lot of it. Habit in generations of farming and the taste. And like I say, they're really like going to town with meat now. So you have got a battle on your hands up against like the way media, like Instagram, food on Instagram is probably maybe the biggest photographed thing apart from faces. And it's habits, and I reckon you've probably convinced a few the other way today, Ron, to be honest. I appreciate you coming down. I think we'll wrap it up if you don't mind. Nice one, mate.
Lovely. Thanks.
Great to meet you. Thank you very much.